as far as what I would picture those ghouls to be in the book. They kind of nailed it in the movie, in my opinion. They felt very very creepy. So that's and that's one of those things. Like I said, I'm usually a big stickler on books, just because the books flesh out the story, and there's a lot of things that the movies can't quite flesh out enough, and things don't make it don't necessarily make sense. That's one of the things where I'm trying to be more open minded about it, but like I'm a big reader, so that's one of those things where I try to watch myself on, because some people are kind of like they've never read the book, so I don't want to obviously spoil it for somebody.
Yeah, another movie I really liked was Charlton Heston, where he was a scientist, and he was basically one of the last people alive, and then he runs across a woman. But, he ends up dying. But I mean, again, like with the zombies that come out at night and all that stuff, I think that movie is way ahead of its time also.
And that was actually incidentally based off of I Am Legend as well. But that was, and it was actually deviated from the book quite a bit in terms of the creatures, I guess you'd call them. I think they refer to them as kind of mutants in that one, but, yeah, I mean, I think he did a really fantastic job at capturing Neville, and as far as his descent into madness, and honestly, the remake they did with Will Smith, I loved Will Smith's portrayal of Robert Neville. I mean, he nailed it. I mean, the whole him slowly driving himself insane. He honestly nailed it. But however, I think that this is one of those instances where computer-generated graphics really ruined that movie for me. Like, I'm not afraid of the vampires or whatever creatures those claim to be in the movie. I'm not scared of them. They don't look like anything to be scared of. Which I really had high hopes for the movie when I first heard they were making it. I thought, wow, this is going to be awesome. Will Smith's such a great actor. As far as I loved him in Independence Day and Pursuit of Happiness. So I thought, well, this is going to be awesome, and he nailed it. I just wish that they would have went with a more, personable approach with the vampire monster creatures that were in there, because they didn't seem very scary, very real. There wasn't that tension that the previous two movies, grabbed you by the throat and made you, wonder, is he going to make it out of here alive? And these monsters here was kind of like, not so much.
Well, especially with Charlton Heston, going into, buildings and stuff like that. It kind of like you sat on the edge of the bed or your sofa when you're watching it, and you were biting your nails wondering if, hey, is he going to be, attacked, or, is he going to get out? And, of course, Charlton Heston was a great actor. So, I mean, between Will Smith and him, it's a toss-up, because, each one was, portrayed, the part a little bit different.
Oh, exactly, and that's what I think it's what I like about the Charlton Heston and in Omega Man, was that he had this cocky demeanor about him that made you like him. I mean, at least for me anyway. He just seemed like he was just very, he already had them figured out, and it seemed like every time that they thought they had the drop on him, or was ready to really render that final justice, then he would outsmart them, and of course, naturally, I guess another human ended up being his downfall, because he had somebody else to look out for instead of just himself. So, and again, it was really, that's kind of why that I guess it's the lesson that the book brings to the reader, is that we as humans are the monsters, the legends. We are the ones that stalk in the night and are, I guess, feared by the masses now. So I think that's kind of where it kind of took me a few times reading it to kind of really understand, and watching the movies to really understand the whole point the book was trying to come across. But in the end, if you think, okay, he's out killing people, or I use the term people loosely there, as far as they've sort of found a vaccine that has kept this virus or whatever at bay, and he's killing them indiscriminately. He doesn't really care if they're alive or, vampire, but at the same time, he doesn't know this either. So he's become the legend, the monster, the thing that to be feared and that lurks in the dark and under your bed and in your closet. He became the monster. So that was another unique twist to, as far as that particular book and the movies. And it's kind of like, by the end, I mean, was he really the hero after all? I mean, did he, he was unknowingly murdering innocent people. And so it really puts you in a bit of a conundrum there as far as how do you take that? I mean, was he the villain all along? I mean, was he, just in his actions, but, wasn't aware of what was going on? I mean, what are your thoughts on it as far as, do you think he was a villain maybe, or?
Well, I do, because they looked at him as the villain. That's just it. They looked at him as the monster. And he looked at them as the monster, but, they have mutated into what they are, and they accepted what they are. He did not accept what they were turned into, so therefore his idea was to, try to destroy him, and that's the impression I got.
And that's kind of where, it was really, it was like I said, it was definitely, if you really, pick apart the movie and think about it, it really is a thinking man's film. I mean, because, in the end, he was the monster. He was the one that they were afraid of. But yet at the same time, it was self-preservation. He was trying to save his own life. But of course, naturally I have, a plethora of questions as far as he, why didn't he, try to work on some sort of a vaccine or see if he can capture one of them to see if he can revert them back to human, Again, of course, it would have, probably just completely destroyed the whole, point of the story. But,
well, if I remember right,
one of those things where it makes you think.
Well, if I remember right, that's what Will Smith was trying to do at one point.
Exactly. And he was trying to figure out a way to reverse the process where, Vincent Price and Charlton Heston were just trying to survive and trying to, maybe hopefully, again, find survivors, but at the same time, I think they kind of, thought all hope was lost and that there was nothing else they could really do at this point but survive and kill off the thing that's trying to kill them first. So that's kind of where they are the sort of the anti-hero here. They wanted to be, just want to be safe, even if that meant slowly driving them insane and not having any other human contact or interaction. And that's kind of where I like, again, it's puts you in a bit of a conundrum there. Is it, how does that necessarily work? And I love films like that. There's actually a Hammer film, with Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, again, another one of my favorite books. And they really did a complete, just a different turn with this. And, I mean, and stop me if you haven't actually seen the movie. I definitely don't want to spoil it for you, but, have you seen the Hammer version of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde?
I have probably seen it a dozen times, but you have to refresh my memory. I watch so much sci-fi and horror movies that, and I hate to say it, they all kind of blend into my little brain.
I could definitely, some of the like the slasher genres, some of that kind of, it kind of does me too. I get turned around sometimes on them, but the Hammer version of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, where it was not the monster part of it, where he changes into this monster or changes this brutish, murderous ape-like creature. In this film, he turns into a suave, gambling, womanizing, hard drinking personality. And he wasn't really, I guess, in a sense, a monster per se, but it just really was just an awesome movie because it was so different. I mean, it was still based on the same story, but it was different than what we had been grown up to, brought up to in reading, to what this monster actually looks like. I mean, this is a completely different outtake on it. And I was really fascinated with it because I actually had watched a friend of mine actually had gotten me into the Hammer films, and when I was younger, I didn't really appreciate Hammer films because I didn't quite understand them. I mean, I wasn't really familiar with them, and I grew up with Universal Studios, Dracula and Frankenstein and the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and Phantom of the Opera. So I was kind of like, I don't know how I feel about the Hammer films. I mean, but after I got older and started really appreciating them, I became almost obsessed with finding them. And so a friend of mine actually had started helping me gather collections, and he's opened a whole other rabbit hole there for these movies for me.
Oh, yeah.
It was crazy. I just didn't realize, that I watched, the Dracula and, the Frankenstein with Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee. And that's why I was like, wow, I never realized how great these movies were until I actually sit down and, made myself actually watch them, because they are, they have, the British have their own complete, outlook on this. And it's just as, in my opinion now, it's just equally as good as Universal's.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, that could be up for debate. A lot of people would probably argue with me on that one, but, I think both are fantastic in their own rights. But
Hammer movies.
There's a lot of Hammer fans out there, and I was really surprised by this. And actually, I have a Twitter account, and actually Hammer Productions actually follows me on that, and we kind of converse back and forth, and they kind of they announce projects and things, and so they're trying to slowly, I think, revamp the Hammer films. I don't know if they're going to go with a different approach as far as creating a whole new, slew of films and something unique, or if they're going to try to, retouch and revamp what they've already, what people have come to love. So, and as you well know, here in the U.S., one of the things that horror movie fans, you'll usually hear them say is stop with the reboots and the remakes. That's, of course, I guess, from the younger generation, they may not have seen the originals, but they may relate more to the remakes and the reboots and everything. Whereas us old school, the old school fans are like, no, just stop.
Well, how do you judge?
Make something else.
It's really hard, when you have watched the original, and then regardless if it's a horror movie or a comedy or whatever. Okay, when they do a reboot and they redo it, number one, you got different actors, you got different directors, you got everything done different. And, then you just look at it, and I hate to say it, I've never seen a reboot or a redone of a movie that I actually like the redone over the original. Now, I got one question to you. You know what, really, when I think about zombie movies and stuff like that, 28 Days. And, at least the zombies at 28 days were starting to die off. Now, here you have like The Walking Dead, for example, right? They're talking now. They got another 10 years, they're claiming now, of making The Walking Dead and some spin-offs of it. Can they really get away with it?
And that's that's an interesting subject, because I know we've some of the groups and things that I'm on my Facebook page, and again some of the Twitter feeds that I get into discussions about that. I'm kind of middle of the road about it. I think The Walking Dead, honestly, as much as I love the show originally, it kind of jumped the shark, I think, and I believe they're still trying, but I think a lot of the fans are kind of like, especially when they're losing, some of the major cast there. I won't reveal any spoilers, because I know there's a lot of people that haven't been made aware yet of what's going on. So, majority of the cast that we, grew up with, I guess, so to speak, is leaving the show. So I think that maybe this could be their way of, of breathing new life into it. And I think the Fear of the Walking Dead, I think, when initially started out strong, I really enjoyed watching it, because I liked how things were breaking down, how society was, kind of in denial. They would see the police beating on a homeless man, not knowing that he was trying to eat their face off, and they just assumed that they were just police brutality and banded together and, one was trying to be protective, the other was trying to be protected.